we're making a big mistake, I think, because all we ever talk about is the transgender thing. That's all conservatives are focused on right now, and for good reason, because it's the most radical social transformation, at least on the surface, that we have ever seen in this country. Not just the idea that we need to change certain behaviors, but the claim that there's no difference between men and women, the fundamental distinction in human nature, and that men can really be women, and we've got to mutilate people and chop them up and get rid of the girls' room and let Husky Hank, walk in to the public swimming pool and get naked in front of your daughter. It's obviously so radical and insane. This is why this is the dominant issue for conservatives to be talking about, and for the libs to be pushing, for that matter. I feel, though, that conservatives are making a huge mistake in how we fight on this issue. I just discussed this at the National Conservatism Conference down in Miami. We know that the conservative strategy is failing. We know that despite all of our bluster and talk and obsession about transgenderism, it's not really working. Maybe we win a governorship in Virginia. Maybe we push back a little bit in Florida. But if you just look at the progression of the law, transgenderism is completely winning. It's being enshrined in law by the Supreme Court, by the legislatures, in schools, in corporations, everywhere, okay? Conservatives have completely lost on this issue. And I think the reason for that is because conservatives are making a very shallow argument. The conservative argument right now against transgenderism is science says that men and women are different. That's the argument. The lib argument for transgenderism is there's biological sex and there's gender expression. And those two things are different, and they can be in contradiction with one another. Okay, and it's a little more complicated because sometimes the libs will say that there's such a thing as a biologically female phallus or a biologically male uterus, and that's obviously very confusing. But when the libs are being their most coherent, they say transgenderism rests on a distinction between sex and gender expression. And the conservative response is, no, gender expression is not real. It's only sex. It's only biology. It's only X chromosomes and XY chromosomes and genitals, and that's all it is. That's how you know sex. And I thought, no, that actually isn't true. Obviously, there's such a thing as gender expression. Gender expression is to sex sort of like what the soul is to the body, right? It's the metaphysical aspect of the physical thing. The body's physical, the sex is physical, the gender expression and the soul are metaphysical. Obviously, we know this is true because men and women behave somewhat differently in different cultures. Obviously, we know this is true because men can be effeminate. Obviously, we know this is true because women can be masculine. Of course, there can be one's expression of sex and gender can be at odds or a little separated from one's physical sex. So what's the answer to this? I don't think the answer is to just deny it, because when you deny it, then you fall into the same soul-denying scientism that the libs used to get us into this mess in the first place. I think the way that you have to address this is by granting, yes, of course there's such a thing as gender expression. Yeah, of course. And you have a duty to bring your gender expression in line with your sex. Yeah, of course these two things are distinct, the symbol and the symbolized, the body and the spirit, sure. You have a duty to bring them into alignment with one another. This word duty used to be so central to the conservative view of the world. I mean, this is what Edmund Burke talked about. Edmund Burke in the Reflections on the Revolution in France, he talked about that generous loyalty to rank and sex, that proud submission, that dignified obedience that found, even in servitude itself, the spirit of an exalted freedom. Not just our rights and our entitlement and our physical bodies. I mean, we're talking like the leftist materialists when we talk that way. No, duty. Boys are supposed to act like boys. They're not supposed to act like girls. And girls are supposed to act like girls. They're not supposed to act like boys. You have a duty to fulfill a role in society because we're not free-floating atoms. We live in a society. Okay, we live in a political community. And we find our place in that political community not primarily by demanding a bunch of rights and entitlements, but through duty and recognizing our roles and for fulfilling those roles, which we can perceive in the political community and from the transcendent moral order. That's what it's about. To quote Don, the actual conservative response on this should not be, well, actually science says that there are two X chromosomes or whatever. It should be the Don Corleone response. When he's talking to Johnny Fontaine, Johnny Fontaine says, Godfather, I don't know what to do. Can't get it out of my mind. He says, what are you talking about? You can act like a man. What's the matter with you? There is a video that has gone viral. It's being reported by Reuters. I have instructed my editors to blur this video. It's a video of a 10-year-old drag kid who was just the headliner of New York's Fashion Week. And the video is everywhere, and it's being reported on by big news organizations without blurring his face. I don't care. It's child abuse. What this kid's guardians are doing to him is child abuse. What the media are doing to him is child abuse. And so I, at least, and I encourage other conservatives to follow suit, I'm gonna blur this kid's face. He goes by Noella McMaher. He's a 10-year-old who has been convinced to become a transgender model and activist. Here's what he had to say about his starring role at New York's Fashion Week.
What is normal? What is normal? It's 2022. No one knows what normal is at this point.
She's believed to be the youngest transgender model to walk ever in the show.
Cool to have that title, and it shows that I actually am like showing other people and kids that being transgender isn't bad.
Through her social media, she wants people to know trans kids are not different from other kids.
She needs to be doing. We want to make sure that
there it is.
We're supporting her dreams, and the fact that she
has
this want
parents.
to be an activist and be visible for other trans kids, we know is just so important in a world that, especially right now in our current political climate, that has so many things that are working against her, kids like her.
Okay, for those who couldn't watch that, consider yourselves lucky. That last little bit there is in what looks like Times Square, and it's Dee's, whatever the boy's name is, Noella is his fake name, Noella's parents, quote unquote. And Noella's parents are these kind of androgynous looking people, one of whom calls herself Dee, but Dee has some facial hair and looks kind of like a man, but I think is actually a woman. And then this other eunuch sort of looking person who I think is also a woman, but also is dressing up like a boy. And I remember reading a story about the poor little boy's father, who now has no role in his life and was booted out of the family life, and said he has no say now over all this crazy transgender stuff. Obviously, this is from the weird lesbian, transgender, whatever, parents, guardians who are abusing this child. They should have no right to even see this child. They should be in prison. That the sort of things that they're doing to themselves and to this child should be illegal. And all of that was true. All of this stuff was illegal, extremely stigmatized until very, very recently. The child certainly would have been taken away by Child Protective Services even 10 years ago, if not even more recently. But now we live in this upside-down world where extremely sexually confused, mentally ill people are allowed to abuse little children and parade a little boy around in dresses like a sexual object at the age of 10 at a New York fashion show. And not only are we not allowed to criticize that, very likely this segment will be taken down, or Media Matters will clip it, or there will be, but whatever, who cares? I mean, it is what it is. Not only are we not allowed to criticize it, we have to celebrate it. And it just leads to this question that is very hard for conservatives to consider. Are we the baddies? Are we the baddies? Because I look around at all sorts of terrible regimes around the world, and regimes which in many ways do many worse things than the United States. China, Russia, all these, regimes that do bad stuff. I don't think those regimes trot 10-year-old boys in little skirts down the runway for the seal-clapping applause of sexual degenerates and perverts in New York City, in the public square, and encourage all of this stuff. That sort of thing isn't celebrated there. Are we the baddies? I don't think we used to be the baddies. I think this is kind of a recent thing, but it's a really big deal. And even beyond the transgender question, the fact that you've now got the President of the United States sicking his federal law enforcement, which is acting like his kind of personal police force, to raid the home of his predecessor and current chief political rival, that's pretty baddie stuff. That's what they do in really baddie banana republic regimes. The fact that the president is now hiring 87,000 new IRS agents, some of whom he's going to arm to go down and shake you down for more money than they're already taking. That doesn't seem like a good sign, especially when he's calling you fascists and saying your very existence is a threat to the country. That seems kind of dangerous and scary. The fact that we allow and encourage at the highest levels of government, we encourage roving gangs of criminals to burn the country down for 8 months at a time in a kind of ecstatic religious celebration of a career criminal who was killed because he took a fatal amount of illegal drugs and resisted arrest while committing a crime. Does that make a lot of sense? I don't know. I just kind of fear that we're becoming the baddies. And the Democrats are actively encouraging us to be the baddies, and they're cheering it on and threatening to line us all up against the wall at their call to arms. And what are the conservatives doing? We're saying, well, I can't enforce my morality on anybody. I don't listen, I don't want to force my religious views on anybody, okay? I might not support 10-year-old boys being sexually abused by their lesbian eunuch guardians and being trotted out for the sexual pleasure of depraved people in New York City. I might not support it, okay? All right, but I will fight to the death to defend your right to do it. No, what are you talking about? No. Yeah, please impose your morality. You have to. Please impose your religious views, that your crazy extreme religious view that we shouldn't sexualize 10-year-olds and march them down the runway and have them dancing around at bars in the country for dollar bills, which has happened multiple times now on video. Please impose your crazy morality that says that children should be allowed to be children and raised with their mother and father and not have their genitals chopped off. Please, I support it. If that's theocracy, then sign me up, baby. Call me the Holy Roman Emperor, okay? Right now, text Knowles to 989898. The Biden administration has recently announced its plan to hire 87,000 new IRS agents in 2023, many of whom will be bearing arms as they shake you down for your money. You need to secure your savings in a tax-sheltered account now, and Birch Gold can help you do just that. Birch Gold Group helps you hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account to protect you from big government trying to take all your wealth. Plus, throughout history, gold has always been your best hedge against inflation. A diversified savings can protect you from downturns in the market. If you have a 401k or IRA that is underperforming, just text Knowles, Knowles, to 989898, and you can convert that into an IRA in precious metals right now. Birch Gold Group has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of satisfied customers. Text Knowles to 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on diversifying into gold tax-free. Take the necessary steps to hedge against inflation today. Protect your hard-earned money. Get your free info kit by texting Knowles to 989898 now. I'm so glad you liked that clip. Now, you got to ring that bell. Subscribe, get the notifications. We'll see you next time.